And for me, I enjoyed working. I worked for Dow Chemical, a great company. I would have had a good, satisfying career, I think, with them, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. But I feel I've had, for me, a greater impact by pursuing the path I did. Uh, I know there's been thousands of employees who've passed through ERM's doors, and that continues to be the case. I've been gone from the company about 20 years. Now the company's $1 billion business, and it's in 40 some countries, and it employs some 7,000 or 8,000 people. And some of them have gone on to start their own businesses. So it's a multiplying effect. And there's great satisfaction I get out of that, of finding talents, putting them in a position where they can grow and accomplish their dreams, share the wealth with them, and there's something very satisfying about that.
Hey everyone, and welcome. I am Morgan Giss McDonald, founder CEO of Paper Raven Books, and I have with us today a super special guest. If you are running a business, growing a business, thinking about starting a business, you are going to want to pay attention to this interview because we are interviewing the author of the Successful Entrepreneur Playbook, a practical guide to building a successful business. And folks, this author has been around the block. He has seen a few businesses. He spent over 50 years in environmental consulting and related businesses. He founded Environmental Resources Management Incorporated, the ERM Group, which was a global company. 66 companies across 34 countries, 2,500 employees, and this author also remains active, serves on boards, has seen a lot of businesses. Mr. Paul Woodruff, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Morgan. It's nice to be here.
We're so excited. I mean, I'm personally excited, obviously. I love your book and I love getting the chance to talk with you about business. I feel like it's been such a pleasure for me personally. I'm thrilled to be able to share your knowledge, your wisdom, your lessons with the world. And one of the things that you and I were talking about before we hit record here, Paul, is, what types of businesses is this book really speaking to? Can you give us some insights into the different types of businesses that you have seen in your career?
Well, the book has been written with the assumption that there's a large percentage of things that every business has to be concerned about, and they have to develop some excellence at, or they won't succeed. My business started out as a professional consulting service. Served industry, primarily the large 500 global companies. The business, as it grew, we added vertically, so that eventually we got into drilling wells for groundwater contamination. We got into analytical laboratories. We got into data management, business where you could subscribe to a database to keep track of environmental regulations on the state or national level. We had a risk business, catastrophic risk business. And by the way, just as an aside, this was kind of a fun business. We did the risk work for the channel between France and England. We did there's an airport. Some of your listeners may have been into Hong Kong's airport, the old airport, which you used to land right downtown. A lot of people didn't realize. They saw the office buildings because you could read the newspapers in the windows as you landed, but they didn't realize there was also a large chlorine storage facility on the other side. So if a plane happened to wander off or something happened, it would have been disastrous. Anyway, that was an interesting kind of business that we got into. We got into dispute resolution in the construction industry. We had construction companies that actually cleaned up hazardous waste management sites, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So the ERM group, as time went on, broadened its service base as well as its client base and its geographical base. And that's really one of the secrets to growing any business, is to think about what you can do to diversify the kind of services or customers or locations in which you can deliver whatever it is you do.
That's perfect, Paul. And you have seen firsthand a lot of businesses and a lot of industries. You also serve on the board. You've been an advisor, a consultant for many other types of businesses. And I mean, this is the book that sort of gleans the insights that run across businesses. Is that kind of an accurate way to talk about it?
That is correct. Every business has to figure out what they're going to do to make a living, what their vision is, where are they going, how are they going to get there, what kind of resources are they going to need. The people factor is huge in every business. If you don't have good people, you're not going to get good results. If you have superb people, you're likely, to have superb results. Everyone has to worry about where the customer is coming from and meet the customer where the customer wants to be met and deliver what the customer wants repeatedly, not just once, repeatedly. Those are the common threads. And I've tried to give some insights into each of these areas so that the entrepreneur to be, or the entrepreneur who already has launched and wants to see their business go faster or better. There's some tools here to make that happen.
Perfect. Okay, so give us a little teaser, Paul. What are some of the lessons that you share inside of the Successful Entrepreneur Playbook? Maybe some lessons that you wish you had known when you were starting out.
Well, one comes to mind. It may not be as germane as I'd like, but it's one of those things I have some regrets about. I like to play golf, and starting a business and building a business and having a large family and caring about the family too, and being involved in your community doesn't leave much time extra to play golf. Well, one of the things that every business needs to do is to find customers, to maintain relationships with others. And I didn't realize I could actually do that on a golf course. I figured that out pretty late in the game. So I don't know if that's for germane to anybody else, but you really can't have all of your cake and eat it all. You can't. Let's be honest. But if you learn how to manage your time, you can have a lot of your cake and get it done. You really can.
And you mentioned you had a large family. How many kids do you have?
We have 6 kids. We have 20 grandchildren. We have 13 greats, and we've just been advised in the last 2 weeks that number 14 is coming in May and number 15 is coming in June.
Congratulations. That's amazing. And I think for folks who are starting their own businesses, a lot of times it is because they want to support the family and have their own sort of freedom, independence, flexibility in doing so. What has it been like for you over your career, Paul, to sort of like have, a lot of family responsibilities, a lot of soccer games and things like that? So obviously great ambitions in business as well. What has that kind of looked like for you over your career?
Well, there's several elements to it, I guess. One is figuring out what your values are, and then see if you can match your use of time to agree with your values. And the rub is that we could all like to be full-time parents, and we could spend full-time building a business, right? You can't do both. So time management is the second piece of this. And I go into this in some detail in the book because I think it's such a key thing, a skill to master. And it isn't something you typically learn in college, and you often don't learn it at home either. So part of that tricks is to figure out really what is important to you. Where do you really want to spend your time? And then keep track of how you actually spend your time for maybe a week. And then compare the two. And you'll find they don't match very well. And you'll try to say to yourself, well, it wasn't a typical week. Well, all right, do it another week. It won't be a typical week either. You'll get the same result. Well, now you change some of that. Sometimes it means I've got to take some things out. And for me, it was golf. That's the way it was. I couldn't spend 4 or 5 hours playing golf when I needed to be home because I had to travel a lot. So when I was home, that wasn't a good thing to be running off to play golf. So, and the other thing that goes with that is learning to delegate. And many people who start businesses are usually pretty good at what they do. Somebody wants to start a pie business and they're really good at baking pies. Well, there's only so many pies one person can bake. And if you don't teach somebody else how to bake a pie, you're kind of stuck. So delegating what your game plan is, learning to use technology, which we're using right now. All of these things can make it possible for you to be at your soccer game and also put the time in where you need to put it in at the business and let other people do what they can do that you don't need to do. So anyway, those are some of the things that are common, I think, to everybody's pursuit of trying to have some kind of balance in their life.
Yes. Well, I think when I, have been in conversations with other entrepreneurs and things like that, people say, yes, yes. I mean, I know I need to delegate, but that means I've got to hire someone and manage someone, and the business still needs to make money, right? Like, so that I can pay the people. How have you done this in your different businesses, Paul? Like, I know you've got entire chapters on, creating and managing growth and making a profit and all those sorts of things. But like, when push comes to shove, how do you really grow a business that has enough revenue that you can keep paying top talent?
Well, it goes back, I guess, in part to finding some device that will allow you to multiply. Some of the businesses we're benefiting from today in the technology world are apps. Somebody spent X hours building some app and empowering maybe millions of people to pursue a hobby or their business more effectively than they could before. Well, if that isn't our business, how do we use those tools, though, to grow our businesses? And human talent, we haven't found a way to replace us yet, but that unfortunately may happen. So for me, it was finding individuals in each of the businesses, whether it was on the environmental consulting side or whether it was one of the other companies we had started, an analytical laboratory. I had to find somebody that had that set of skills, knew that particular market, knew how to find people and how to find customers, empower them, give them the resources they need, and stay out of their way as much as I needed to. So I did that over and over and over and over again. Start a fire, make sure it's going, start another fire, make sure it's going. And people come, I've said over and over in this book, people come in all sizes and shapes, colors, genders, with and without college educations. That gets me onto a little bit of a side story here. I think so often employers ask for college education when they really don't need to. There are so many talented people out there, for one reason or another, didn't have the desire or the opportunity to go to college, but they have the smarts, they have the skills, they need some encouragement, some help, and they can get a job done. So anyway, finding people, empower them, don't abandon them. That doesn't work. You have to agree on a set of monitoring data so that you know what's going on without being burdensome. And then periodically be involved, stay involved, but you don't have to do it. If you do it, you run out of do it time pretty quickly.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that ultimately, like, if we're going to do anything other than just be the person who is the freelancer, who designs the graphic, or bakes the pie, or edits the book, or whatever, if it's going to become an actual business, we're going to have to pull ourselves out of doing the thing and run the business.
That's one of the distinctions I've made early in the book is self-employment is the right path for many people to take. And that might involve maybe a couple of employees, but it's not building a business, and it wasn't maybe intended to build the business. Dentists usually are single actors. Maybe they'll have another or two, but they're not, generally speaking, in the business of building a large business. Now, there certainly are exceptions to that. In our area in Philadelphia, we have something called the Rothman Institute. It's a orthopedic practice, and it started with one individual, and now they've got 3 or 4 locations around the country and employ hundreds of orthopedic physicians. So there may be dental chains like that too. I'm just not familiar with them. Most anything you can be a solo actor, you can have a single shoe shine shop, or you can have shoe shine folks scattered all over the country that you do the promotion for, you do the supplying, you do the insurance, a whole lot of things that are difficult for many people to do. It takes time, and you get leverage where you have not quite a few people to take advantage of a single purchase.
Yeah, exactly. So folks, if you're listening, you're like, oh, that's what I'm interested in doing, right? Not just being a solo freelancer, but really growing a business. If you have sort of made the leaps into growing a business, you'll realize that you hit so many challenges that how do you find out from other successful people, like what they've done to actually overcome those challenges? And Paul, I mean,
Right.
even looking at your table of contents, I'm like, this is a buffet of like everything that we need, right? It's like dealing with organizational form and taxes, crafting a business, finding and keeping employees, marketing and sales, recognizing and managing major business risks, delivering the goods and services, creating and managing growth, making a profit, growing your own ability to succeed, growing internationally, exiting your business, right? Like this is the scope of this book. And what I love what you have done with the Successful Entrepreneur Playbook, Paul, is that you really packaged up so many lessons over a lifetime that are, they're evergreen. Like we've talked about, they're sort of across businesses, across models, things that really must be done because we're not talking about a particular craft. We're not talking about how to drill a well for groundwater, or how to do environmental protections and things like that. This is the business of building a business. So folks, if you're like, this is my kind of conversation, then the good news is we want to get Paul's book out to as many people as possible. You can actually grab a free copy of the ebook right now, today. If you go to paperravenbooks.com/the Successful Entrepreneur Playbook, there's a link right next to this video. So just click the link, takes you straight over to Amazon, download the ebook right now, load it up on your Kindle. The ebook is free today. And of course, other versions. So if you want any other version of the book, that is available for you as well. But if you want to just grab the ebook so you can crack it open, dive in, start learning these just invaluable lessons about the business of growing and managing and even exiting a business, this is the book for you. And Paul, I'm curious, like from your perspective, why build a business? Like if we were to think about what this has made possible for you and for your family and your career, like why build a business?
Well, I guess it's a leverage thing. For me, I enjoyed working. I worked for Dow Chemical, a great company. I would have had a good, satisfying career, I think, with them. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. But I feel I've had, for me, a greater impact by pursuing the path I did. I know there's been thousands of employees who've passed through ERM's doors, and that continues to be the case. I've been gone from the company about 20 years. Now the company's $1 billion business, and it's in 40-some countries, and it employs some 7,000 or 8,000 people. And some of them have gone on to start their own businesses. So it's a multiplying effect. And there's great satisfaction I get out of that, of finding talents, putting them in a position where they can grow and accomplish their dreams, share the wealth with them, and there's something very satisfying about that. And it also allows you to play a role in the community that somehow it's harder to do. You don't have the visibility typically as an employee unless you're at the very top of a large company. It gives you some wherewithal so you can contribute to the community in addition to your time. And it gives you a certain degree of freedom, not initially, I might add, but in time it does. And technology has helped in that regard too, even early on, that you can work most anywhere today, depending on your business. It's kind of hard if you're an excavator to work anywhere but the hole you need to dig. But anyway, there are a lot of businesses where you can. So I think if I had to do all over again, would I do it? You bet. You bet I would. In fact, my children, out of my children, all but one is self-employed or their spouse is. And the one that is not really is because they have a 250-acre farm. I understand today you have to be a 2,500-acre farm before you can really make a living at it, but they do have a farm, and he happens to be a principal of a school. So, and I see in the next generation hope, but that's up to them to decide. Because the thing is to be happy with yourself, the decisions you make. Are you at peace with yourself? And I think some people jump into the entrepreneurial role because they haven't found that in more traditional employment. And you do have a little more to worry about. Yes. And again, learn to delegate, because then you can share that load. But you also have more degrees of freedom in the end.
So good. Couldn't agree more, for sure. And Paul, I want to talk just very briefly about your writing process, because I think it reminds me a lot of how people maybe come to a book, especially after you've had a career and you have a lot of lessons to pass on. You actually have already written kind of your own like autobiography that was intended for family, right? So you
wrote
a lot of fun. Like a 600-page autobiography already. And then you came to me and said, okay, Morgan, I want to write something a little bit different. It's not actually an autobiography. It's really more of a book that's meant to be a helpful sort of guide to entrepreneurs. How was it? How was this different, writing this book, the Successful Entrepreneur Playbook? What was writing this book like for you?
Well, I guess it was just a series of conversations that I would have with myself. In fact, I think I told you that most of this book I dictated. I put an outline together to start with. And that took a while to kind of think through, what can I share that will have general applicability and really be useful to people starting a business or wanting to grow a business. So once that was done, then it was fun, because I would dictate one chapter at a time, and it just comes. It's there. It's inside you. And if you've got a story to tell, and I think that's true in fiction too, because as I told you, I'm doing a series of children's stories for my grandchildren, my great grands at this point. People have stories, and sometimes I think it's easier to dictate it than it is to write it, because we're just having a conversation, And when we sit down with a paper, I don't have a writer's block. It's not there. I can just talk. And when you get it back, sometimes you need to have a heavy editing job, but that for me works. So if you're out there, some of you want to write a book, try dictating.
I think that's fantastic. Especially, it helps you to get that conversational flow, like you mentioned. The Successful Entrepreneur Playbook, it reads like I'm having a conversation with a mentor who's kind of been there and wants to give me, some lessons learned the hard way and wants to give me a little bit of a leg up. And it's very encouraging and inspiring and practical. So thank you for putting this book out. I'm just so appreciate it. And I'm so thrilled that we get to help you get it out to a wide audience of young entrepreneurs and business builders, and maybe some who've even been around for, a little while and want to get to that next level. This is absolutely the book for.
That's good for a second career too, I might add.
Yes.
Sometimes I see people moving from major corporations and they feel burned out, or they feel bored, or they have a move they don't want to make, or whatever reason, their family dynamics changed. This can be a wonderful second part of your life. It's great if you get the juice and find the way to do it, and the resources, and you're 25 or 30. For me, I was 40 when I started my own business. There isn't any particular perfect age, but I think sometimes people feel, well, I'm stuck. I should have made that decision years ago. No, you're not necessarily stuck. Think about it. You might have another career in you, and you're 50 years old. I helped one of my brothers, middle brother, who was in the corporate world, worked for Ford Motor Company, worked for others, and held a number of patents, etc. And at 50, had a disagreement with his boss, because his boss asked him to do something he didn't think was moral. He said no, so he got the door. So not a lot of people hiring people at 50, unfortunately, and that's just in itself kind of sad. So he started another business, and similar story with my younger brother. So midlife, maybe it's a midlife crisis. No, it's not a midlife crisis. It's midlife rejuvenation. I don't want to dwell on that too long, but don't give up on that. Don't give up on the possibilities if you think you're too old.
So whether you're young and have the entrepreneur bug, or whether you're mid-career, or you feel like you've already had a good long career and you kind of want something new. I like that word, rejuvenation, midlife rejuvenation. This is your playbook. This is your guidebook. So click on the link next to this video, paperravenbooks.com/the Successful Entrepreneur Playbook. and it'll take you right over to Amazon. You can grab a copy of the ebook. You can order any, copy of the book that you prefer, physical book, audiobook, any of those versions, but you can grab the ebook today. And I would encourage you to go ahead and dive into that book while it's here, while you're thinking about it. And if you know an entrepreneur in your life and you want to share some inspiration with them, tag them here in this video, send this video to them so they can know about Paul Woodruff's book as well. Paul, any last words for your readers?
No, I just hope if somebody does go out and take advantage of that they find it a worthwhile read and it really makes a difference in their lives. That's why I wrote it.
Next generation of successful entrepreneurs. Here we come. Well,
Thank you,
so
Morgan.
much, Paul. Really appreciate your time today.
Morgan.
And congratulations on the new book, and can't wait to get this out to a huge audience with you. So thank you.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to work with you, Morgan.
We all have a good day, and we will see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.